Good morning, and thank you all for being here. A special welcome to our veterans, law enforcement officers, and our first responders, past and present. William J. Bennett, in a lecture to the United States Naval Academy in 1997, said, "Honor never grows old. Honor rejoices the heart of age. It does so because honor is, finally, about defending those noble and worthy things that deserve defending, even if it comes at a high cost. In our time, that may mean social disapproval, public scorn, hardship, persecution, or as always, even death itself. The question remains, what is worth defending? What is worth dying for? What is worth living for?" What I wanted to talk about today was why, in our having the greatest country and the greatest military in the world, along with a law enforcement system that is still the envy of the world, when disaster happens, whether it be in World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Panama, Grenada, the First and Second Iraq Wars, Afghanistan, and every country in the world looks to America for leadership. This is also true in disasters when the world asks, where are the Americans? I remember Europeans laughing at President Bush sending a carrier to Indonesia after the tsunami there in Aceh. And Aceh is at the northeast end of the last island chain, which furnished 100,000 gallons of fresh water each day and tons of food and medical supplies to that region, which had been an Al-Qaeda stronghold. Divine providence? I think so. Many people don't know that. The result, not only did Indonesia, the world's largest Muslim country in the world, say thanks, but they joined wholeheartedly in the fight in the war on terrorism, and there have been few, if any, Indonesians ever joining those groups since. So why is it that our country is not only the most prosperous and giving in the world, responding to evil and disasters? The answer, my friends, is that we follow ideals, God-given ideals, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and not fallible humans as leaders. The idea that there is something much greater than us. We take an oath to a set of ideals which are everlasting. They are not fungible with the times. While even the founders would admit to their own foibles, their ideas are not, and they stand the test of time. Many a dictator has come and gone in the world, along with their own man-made ideas which make fallible men and women as little gods. And those ideas are usually forced upon people by the barrel of a gun, in the end, when populist notions then die. Now, when the bullets are slinging past your head like high-speed wasps, you are fighting for you're fighting for the person to the right and the left of you, no doubt. But we signed up and we took an oath to a set of ideas, the great experiment, as the founders called it. Benjamin Franklin, at the close of the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia in 1787, was asked by a woman as he left the hall, "Well, Mr. Franklin, what do you have for us?" He replied, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it." There seems to be an alarming trend in both the media and some of the newer and some of the older politicians that these sets of ideals are old, they're outdated, that fallible men and women of today's modern age have better ideas, some of which we thought buried in what President Reagan called the ash heap of history. Thousands have given their lives for this set of ideas. We fight for those ideas. Arlington Cemetery is lined with the markers of those who knew this and went willingly to the fight for those reverent ideas. I've had a few discussions with people about this, and I've given my own personal witness to the ravages of this seemingly new ideas when they exclaim, "Well, they just didn't do socialism right." Yeah, okay. I had my own eyewitness accounts of these ravages of collectivism. In 1996, I was chosen as the Partnership for Peace Program Officer for the newly liberated country of Albania. Colonel Steve Bucci, who you may have seen, he's a color commentator now on many news channels, was actually the defense attaché there, and he thoroughly educated me on what to say, but more importantly, what not to say in assisting Albanian forces. For instance, yes and no head bobs are opposite in Albania. For example, this is Po. This means yes. This is Joe. This means no. So when I'm teaching some demolition work or something, and one of the Albanians come up and say, "You want me to crank off the demolition, yes?" Yeah. Makes us stop and think a minute. So that was kind of tough. So I was tasked and privileged to work with their commander of their Special Forces Regiment, who was also in line to be their police chief in the capital city of Toronto. After 2 weeks of work, this gentleman opened his house to myself, well, it's his home to myself and an American EOD officer. His home was a 4-room apartment in a building that looked like it had been built by an 8th grade shop class. Absolutely ramshackle. And this was the top official in the area of the country. General officer, basically. Over a dinner served on a coffee table, he and his wonderful wife told us about how horrible communism was under dictator Enver Hoxha, who in 1967 proclaimed Albania to be the first fully atheist state. He gave us tales of Hoxha's insistence that the West was always coming over the horizon to invade the country. This is the totalitarian technique of titillating the masses in fear for unification, which relegated all citizens to live inside one of, listen to this figure, 700,000 2- and 6-man bunkers for weeks on end. You heard that figure correctly. The word for quality in Albanian, or shkiperizi, which is called, is bunkrik, for the quality of concrete used in them. A very telling synonym for what is important in totalitarian regimes. Doubt me? Google the words Albanian bunker. You'll get an education. The Albanians took those bunkers after getting freedom, and because of freedom, have turned them into mushroom farms, guest houses, and even wine cellars, because freedom works. Do they still have problems? Absolutely. They had a tough time with capitalism getting back into it. But socialism, once adopted, is a difficult ideology and slavish yoke to throw off. When touring a hospital in Durrës, Albania, which is a little bit north, for planned medical exercise, I thought I'd walked into a battlefield hospital at the height of the U.S. Civil War, of which I will spare you the gory details. The tools, quote unquote, and medical treatment were reminiscent of that age. By the way, all treatment was, quote, free, unquote. No thank you. So at the end of that first trip, back in his office at the compound in Zalhair, just outside of Toronto, it's just north of it, the colonel was absolutely overcome with emotion and thankfulness that we were there to help. And that country was now free. His was a reminder that freedom is not free, and it is always one generation away from being taken in favor of egalitarianism and, quote, safety, unquote. I experienced the same when traveling the former Soviet bloc in the Ukraine, Romania, and Bulgaria. The countries, as our drivers and translators told us, were very bleak, sad, depressed, and dark, as were the hopes of the people. God was repressed there in favor of fallible men, and it was a stark reminder of how insightful our founders were in basing our country's values on our Creator and our inalienable rights from Him, relying on what Washington founders recognized as divine providence, and not on college faculty lounge dictates. It still amazes me how many supposed learned people reject our Constitution and want to try failed socioeconomic systems again and again with fallible men as ideas and not God. This always leads to tragedy. Nietzsche predicted this. History codifies it. Why do I relay this eyewitness to you? Because it's lost on many. History is forgotten. Ideas from our founders, hammered out over 11 years of peaceful effort, have not forsaken this country, even in the midst of our own turmoil. Our men and women of our armed forces, our law enforcement, and our first responders take that oath to that set of ideas laid forth in the Declaration of Independence and our Constitution. We, as the citizens of this great experiment, must be the ones to pass this history along, that these other ideas have been proven wrong. And while constitutional republicanism is a messy business, as I'm sure our distinguished folks here will tell you, fraught with debate, the alternative is worse and lessens the individual worth for the aims of the state, aims dictated by fallible persons. Some of that has slowly creeped into our society and our societal lexicon. Our time-tested experiment puts the individual created by God as the highest aim. Those individuals we honor today sacrificed for that ideal when they signed up. So, some of you heard me speak 7 years ago, but I wanted to conclude today with a poem that I had 7 years ago, and I repeated it. But this is one that should be and must be repeated again and again with fierce conviction. Commander John Roach, call sign Bug. You know, I sure am glad that naval aviators are the best in the world and they can bomb and fly and beat everybody, but man, they got to work on these call sign things. You know? He was the most famous landing signals officer in carrier aviation history. There's a plaque dedicated to him in the Miramar Officers Club where the famous Top Gun scenes took place. Many an aviator owes his life to him for talking them down into the deck in poor weather and visibility. He was killed in an A-4 Skyhawk off of San Diego in 1991. Among the things he left before he died was an appropriate poem to be recited upon his demise entitled, "We Are the Nation." So if you'd all do me the honor of just closing your eyes or staring at something and trying to envision this poem in your head to remember the vastness of America and what these veterans and all the veterans and first responders and everybody who takes that oath thinks about. Lord, we are the nation. We celebrate our birthday on July 4th, 1776, with a Declaration of Independence as our birth certificate. The bloodlines of the world run in our veins because we offer freedom and liberty to all who are oppressed. We are many things and many people. We are the nation. We sprawl from the Atlantic to the Pacific, to Alaska and Hawaii, 3 million square miles throbbing with industry and life. We are the forest and the field, mountain and desert. We are the wheat fields of Kansas, the granite hills of Vermont, and the snow-capped peaks of the Sierra Nevada. We are the Brooklyn Bridge. We are the grain elevators in the Farm Belt. We are the Golden Gate. We are the nation. We are millions of living souls, and yet we are the ghosts of millions who have lived and died before us. We are Nathan Hale and Paul Revere. We are Washington, Jefferson, Patrick Henry, Lee, Grant, Abe Lincoln, and George Patton. We are the famous and the unknown. We are the presidents. We are also the paupers. We are the nation. We stood at Lexington and fired the shot heard around the world. We remember the Alamo, the Maine, Pearl Harbor, Incheon, and the Persian Gulf. When freedom calls, we answer. We left our heroic dead at Belleau Wood, on the rock of Corregidor, on the bleak slopes of Korea, in the steamy jungles of Vietnam, and under the rubble of Beirut. We are the nation. We are schools and colleges, churches and synagogues. We're a ballot dropped in a box, the harmonious voice of a choir in a cathedral, the crack of a bat and the roar of a crowd in a stadium. We are craftsmen, teachers, businessmen, and judges. We are laborers and nurses. We are parents and we are children. We are soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. We are peaceful villages, small towns, and cities that never sleep. Yes, we are the nation, and these are the things that we are. We were conceived in freedom, and dear God, if you are willing in freedom, we will spend the rest of our days. May we always be thankful for the blessings you have bestowed upon us. May we be humble to the less fortunate and assist those in need. May we never forget the continuing cost of freedom. May we always remember that if we are to remain the land of the free, we must always continue to be the home of the brave. May our wishbone never be found where our backbone should be. May we always possess the integrity, the courage, the strength to keep ourselves unshackled, to remain always a citadel of freedom and a beacon of hope to the world. We are the nation. This is our wish. This is our hope. This is our prayer. Amen. My favorite line from that prayer is, may our wishbone never be found where our backbone should be. Amen. We have to stay the course of this experiment, ladies and gentlemen, that we call America, and honor those who have served and made the ultimate sacrifice for those ideas over simplistic man-made good ideas that have only brought disaster. Thank you for coming today to honor their sacrifices, not only of our women and men and women in green and blue, but to our thin blue line and our first responders as well. May God bless you. May God bless our village of Great Falls. And may God bless these United States of America. God bless you. Amen.